Welcome to the Influencer Marketing Blueprint, where we teach e-commerce brands the 3-step formula that drives revenue, not just likes. I'm Cody Whittick.
And I'm Taylor Lagasse, and we're here to guide you to influencer marketing success. Let's get started.
All right, everyone. Back with another episode. Today, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of paid media, our strategy at Kinship, how we implement all influencer content when we get 150 plus assets. And this will be one of the questions I ask is, how many assets do we actually need if you guys were going to go replicate this and do it internally? So if you've been following along, listening to each episode, you obviously know our seeding strategy and the way that we mass outreach and get at least 30 influencers posting 2 to 3 times. And then paired with that is we actually run the Facebook ad accounts, TikTok ad accounts, Instagram ad accounts, what is now called Meta, on behalf of our clients as well when we get all this influencer content. And that's where we see direct ROI. So I hope that's been clear throughout past episodes on how to actually see ROI and their content creation ability with influencers. But enough of me giving context. Let's just jump in. With influencer content, well, let's just take it back. What is a good ad and a bad ad, Taylor?
I think the best answer anybody could possibly give here is I have no idea.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, we can speculate, right? You need a really good 3-second hook. They need to showcase the product really well. They need to be, if we're talking about influencer content, super articulate, super charismatic, all these things that make for what we would think is a great ad, right? But I was trying to think where I would even start this discussion because you can just go down pretty deep tactical weeds. But I think a good starting point, and you brought up the perfect one, is as someone that's going to launch content into ads, you need to leave your ego at the door. That's needs to be the starting point of how you're going to engage with this. So what makes a good or bad ad? I don't necessarily care all that much because I just want as much creative as possible. And then I'm going to let Facebook do the decision making there.
Okay. So someone listening, they have an ad account. They've seen what's working, whether that be UGC or Mashables, or they're seeing something working. Would you discourage that person from going out and getting more of that what's working on a macro topic? And then also even if it's in the bucket, let's just say it's in the bucket of a UGC, UGC is working. Okay. But how do we break that down? Okay. Well, when we've seen UGC creators, whether they go to the platforms or they have influencers or it's their customer, when they mention these 2 things about the product or, they have this call to action in the video, it crushes. So we're going to go and try to rinse and repeat this. Would you discourage that or encourage that? Or what are your thoughts around that?
Not necessarily discourage it. I will say though, just because that video worked doesn't mean when you go and replicate it, that video is going to work too. Doesn't mean that. I want to discourage it though. What I would say is though, I would not allow that to discourage you from launching all the other creative that you ultimately would get. If it looks different from it, if it's not up to par with your standards, if it didn't articulate the value adds your product in this exact way. So I want to discourage you from trying to go get more of what's worked to a degree. But the main thing is I just want to let it discourage you from launching all the other creative that you are able to get at your disposal.
So you potentially are saying that you could be leaving money on the table if you're not getting other different types of content, whether it's come from seeding or just anything else.
Oh, 100%. I would definitely not encourage someone to strictly do that. If you're saying, Taylor, do you recommend this brand to only go try to get more of this thing? Oh, that is detrimental to your ad account. The best thing you can potentially do for your ad account is getting as much content as possible and a diverse set, as much of diversity. That's going to set you up for as many opportunities to find success as you can.
Makes me think of when I was at Kalo, we were just getting video testimonials from macro celebrity talent, or even not even celebrity, just athletes, people of influence that usually weren't great content creators, but some that were. It worked until it didn't,
Right.
And I siloed myself and got addicted to Facebook and seeing, well, this is just going to work every time. And it almost doesn't matter who it is, as long as we get a variety of different influencers speaking to the same thing. And the script was just nailed,
Right. Right.
Who it is, what's the product, and, why you need it type thing. But yeah, it stopped working. And then it became other variables. Well, maybe it's the influencer, maybe it's all these different things, but definitely we're not getting variety.
All I was going to say is naturally, we're all going to do that. I think what we've realized though is a lot of that is a waste of time Because what you're doing in that moment is you're trying to outsmart Facebook. Why take the time or effort to do that? What people's goal should be is, how do I get as much creative as I possibly can, as cost effectively as possible, as diverse as possible. Give me as many opportunities to win. That's what you should be putting your focus towards in comparison to, okay, this worked out of all the content we launched. Let's just go pigeonhole ourselves into that lane now and just get a bunch of that. No, keep doing what you did to get a diverse set of content, because just because that testimonial worked this month, hey, an unboxing video is going to work next month. And the next video is going to be a use case video. And it's always going to be different. We've seen that time and time again. We've never chose which one we thought was going to win. That ended up doing so.
Some people might say influencers know how to make organic content. They don't know how to make ads. What would you say to that?
I would ask what's behind the hypothesis, but I hear you. I would say, I think influencers have proven to be able to create content better than anybody else out there on the social media platforms that you as a brand are looking to advertise on. They've proven to do so more than anybody, right? More than your customers, more than you, more than anyone. Why? They create content on the platforms you're advertising on, just because, they built a following, get a lot of engagement on their posts, they get a lot of views. And just because it's organic, that's still more proof than you have from anybody else creating content in a studio shoot. Any proof that you have from a customer that you're getting content from. And then repurposing that to paid media is a great way to leverage it.
So I think it would be helpful at this point to kind of just break down what it is we do. So break down what is dynamic creative testing, break down cost caps. Those are probably like the two biggest things that distinguish us from maybe other strategies.
Yeah, like I said, the starting point of this is, as a media buyer, you got to leave your ego at the door. Don't try to outsmart Facebook's machine learning system if it gives you the opportunity to leverage it where you can't lose. So our strategy, again, is very much so geared towards through seeding, getting as much creative as we possibly can, as much diversity within that content as possible. And when I say diversity, that doesn't mean testimonials, unboxing, use case videos, all the above, the gamut, right? Just an array of different creative. And we believe in order to get it as cost effectively as possible through seeding. So get as much of it more than anybody else out there. When we launch it into paid media, again, leave your ego at the door. We're going to launch everything. We're not sifting through it and saying, hey, Cody, what do you think of this one, man? You just want to launch this one? You just want to launch that one? This, that. Otherwise, then we only end up launching like 5 pieces of creative out of like the 150 that you ultimately can get from seeding. No, we launch everything. So the biggest concern there that we would get from brands is things we've already said, right, and addressed. No, we know that doesn't work. I don't want to waste ad spend behind that piece of creative. That's a lie. That won't happen. Again, Facebook sets you up, or Meta sets you up in a way where you don't need to worry about that. So you might as well launch it all. And so this is where cost caps come in, and we can discuss dynamic creative tests after. So cost caps, if you tell Facebook, hey, I want to get a $20 CPA, great. Cost caps is a bid strategy that you can use and leverage that places a restriction on the campaigns you're running. It says, hey, if this creative does not achieve a $20 CPA or below, you won't spend any money behind it, right? So what does that mean? It means the only way you lose is out on opportunity and potential success is if you don't launch everything, right? So for example, we chat through this from time to time and we try to show brands this in different ways on behalf of different accounts. But one of our brands, Animal House Fitness, piece of content, Joe Rogan organically talking about a product on his podcast, Any Brand's Dream, one piece of content. Second piece of content is this TikTok video, showcases the product really well, gives a great tutorial of it, hits all the value adds, fast pace, the trendy TikTok type of video. Third video, this guy literally calls out he was gifted this product, he hadn't bought it, he hadn't used it, super apathetic. Lo and behold, we launched all of it. That third video is what ended up scaling the ad account to like significantly new heights, beat the CPA target by 40%. We would have never known if we didn't launch it. So most brands would not have launched that third piece of content though, and would only launch the first two. And by doing so, you would have significantly missed out on your ad account scaling to new heights.
So on the cost cap side of things, I can only imagine certain questions, and such as, does it really not spend anything? If it's a $20 CPA and you set a cost cap, if Facebook doesn't believe in acquire a customer for $20 or under, is it not spending 1 cent? Is it spending $1? Is it spending $10? Like, what do you mean by like literally not spending money? Or is it literally zero?
So you can get it to spend zero by setting your cost caps aggressively low. So look at what's happening in your ad account. This is what I suggest. What's happening in your ad account? Don't tell me what your target CPA is. What is actually happening? Well, I say that just because we hear all the time, they're getting like a $50 CPA in their ad account. They tell us their target CPA is 20. What are you actually getting? Cool. Okay, that's what's realistically happening within your ad account at that time. Let's go ahead and set cost caps 30% below that, 40% below that, 50% below that to start across this creative that we're launching with the intention. The goal literally is, okay, day one, we don't want any of this creative to spend $1. And that might be a little confusing, but here's why. It's because we're trying to set that baseline, right, of where we know no money's going to be spent behind this creative. Facebook's saying, hey, we're not going to be able to find a purchaser at that CPA level. It's just, we're not going to be able to do it. Perfect. You found the baseline. Because what we're trying to achieve here, what we're trying to identify is where are we going to be able to spend money, get delivery as efficiently as possible. So let's say you drop your cost caps aggressively low, which was what we would highly recommend. You inch up those cost caps every 24, 48 hours until you start inching out ad spend, which means, hey, Facebook's starting to believe that this creative could win in this audience. You continue to inch it up so long as you're still profitable, right? You don't want to inch your cost caps up past the profitability level. But the idea is you're getting as much delivery as possible, spend-wise, as efficiently as possible. So you do want to spend $0 on that first day, set those cost caps aggressively low, inch them up to get as efficient spend as you can across all the creative that you're running and launching. The more creative that you have, the more aggressively low you should set it. Because again, the more creative that you have, there's more opportunities to spend money there.
Okay, so tell people what dynamic creative test is. So we got, maybe people are listening, they're like, okay, cost caps sounds pretty good. I'm not burning any money, or at least if I tell my media buyer or I'm the one brand manager that's running the ad account as well, I'm convinced of this maybe of, instead of blowing through budget, I'm just going to set cost caps in place. Go into how much creative you're looking to do this with.
As much as possible. I tell every brand, hey, our goal is to literally max out your account's campaigns amount, which is variable to the account. But that's the intent. We want to max out an ad account, literally, with the amount of creative that we're getting. It's not easy to get there, but 3 months to see, 4 months to see, you might do so. So dynamic creative tests, just Facebook's best practice to optimize creative testing. Basically, it's the best way to launch mass creative at once, to be able to sift through as much creative as you can, or the cream of the crop rises, and there's no wasted spend or budget on the riffraff.
Because of the cost caps, though, not because of DCTs.
Right. And so within those dynamic creative tests, again, just Facebook's best practice to launch creative in order to identify top performers as quickly as possible. And that's really what we're after. We want to do this as quickly as possible. Let's just run through our hypothetical here. 100 pieces of creative we have to launch. We're going to launch 4 pieces of creative at a time per dynamic creative testing campaign. Reason being, we want to limit the amount of variables within each ad set of a campaign. Again, another Facebook best practice, trying to limit the variables, which makes sense. Machine learning system, if it has less variables, it will be quicker in identifying what's going to win and work. Less variables, quicker, more efficient, because that learning and optimization is happening at the campaign ad set level. So we would launch, if there's 100 pieces of creative, 25 dynamic creative tests campaigns, 25 dynamic creative testing campaigns, 1 ad set each. Recommend going broad audiences across those ad sets as well. We can go into that a little further, but it's just another way we lean into Facebook's machine learning system and not try to outsmart them. Best practice. Then within each ad set, 4 pieces of creative. So that's the setup and that's the build out.
What is an actual DCT though? Like you're saying it's up to 10 pieces of creative. We're only doing 4 to limit the variables, but just for sake of example, we could put it up to, if you, the brand listening, have 10 assets right now, you can run 1 DCT campaign. What is that actually doing? Like, what is Facebook doing with, what does dynamic creative test actually mean?
Yeah, they're dynamically testing the creative at the end of the day. What does it actually mean? Facebook, we're going to have an audience at the ad set level, right? So in that audience, Facebook is determining, okay, which of these 10 pieces of creative are in our, hypothetical and how we run it, which of these 4 pieces of creative, depending on who is being served the ad. Let's say Cody and I are in this audience. Depending on who's being served this dynamic creative testing ad, Cody will get an ad that is most likely to convert him, and I will get a piece of creative that is most likely to convert me. And those will probably be different pieces of creative based off of the habits that we've had on the internet that the pixel has tracked and their machine learning system understands. So that's what a dynamic creative testing campaign is. It's very much so just determining based on who the end viewer is of that ad, what they will receive within your dynamic creative testing campaign.
Okay. So oftentimes this is the question that we get, and we've talked about this at length, but and maybe you, the brand, are listening. Okay, cost caps, that sounds good. Seems like I can keep being profitable while also continue to get delivery. I have, 30 to 50 pieces of UGC that I get from time to time, whether it come from seeding, come from influencer pay for post, whatever the case is, whether they're an adopter of our philosophy or not. We have a lot of creative. How do I set my budgets? Because that's immediately the first question is like, I'm gonna have to set a budget. I'm gonna have to put budget behind all these different ads, right? So how does that come into play with DCTs, cost caps, all those sorts of things? Because I think that's the first immediate question a lot of people have, even if you're just not in the daily grind of the ad account, which most people aren't, especially the brand owners we're talking to. Okay, this sounds great. What should my budget be? Like, tell me how much I need to put behind all this creative.
Yeah. At the end of the day, everyone wants to spend as much money as possible so long as they're profitable, right? We're operating under that assumption. So what should your budget be? I mean, just keep your inventory in mind. We don't want to break your back end, but that should be the budget so long as we're winning. So the question really isn't about budget. It's really about what's your target CPA. And so long as we're beating that target CPA and so long as you have the inventory to support the orders being placed, would scale this thing to the moon. So it's really a question about target CPAs. And if you're hitting it and you're beating it, spend as much as you possibly can. I mean, every time you give me $1, I give you $2 back. Wouldn't you want to do that as much as possible?
But if I'm a brand owner, how do I project any potential spend?
Well, now we're going to a slightly different conversation, right? Okay, do you want to get a certain delivery out every month of ad spend?
That's what most people are used to.
Yeah, but you just need to go through this exercise and answer it for yourself, right? Do you want to get a certain amount of delivery of ad spend, which some brands do, especially you think about like P&G brands, like they for sure have just a certain budget they're spending regardless. But you need to ask this for yourself. Are you going to get a certain amount of delivery out regardless? Okay. To what extent based on performance? Or are you only spending $1 if you make this amount back? And a lot of you guys are probably on the spectrum somewhere in between, right? So there just needs to be a decision tree based off that. Okay, we want to get this much. Hey, we would love to spend $50K at a 4 ROAS, right? Okay, if you're at a 2 ROAS, what do? You have to decide that for yourself, right? Like what level of spend do you want to get out regardless at a 2? Is it 0? Is it 25,000? You know what I mean? So it's that conversation that needs to happen internally. Does spend need to happen regardless, or are we only spending $1 so long as we're hitting this level of performance?
Would you do this dynamic creative cost cap strategy if getting content was a continuous pain point? Does that make sense? Like, which is most brands out there, by the way, is like getting enough creative to run this strategy. Is this a viable strategy if you're launching 10 ads a month?
Yeah. I mean, I would just launch it across 2 to 3 dynamic creative tests, 100%.
Great. I'll start trying this, Taylor.
Yeah, it's definitely still the most efficient way to test creative and scale creative. So it's literally a must for us, just with how much creative we're launching.
Right. So I guess that's just the reverse end of the spectrum. It's like, well, I'm not getting that much creative. Like, do I still do this? Because then I test it. It's quick, but then I'm out of creative. Right. So like, what's the alternative?
Well, after you find, maybe we talk about this on a different one too, because we're just talking about the initial launch here. But yeah, after you identify winners within a dynamic creative test, we highly recommend repurposing that into its own dynamic creative test and scaling it there as well. So you have a system of scaling top performers, identifying top performers as quickly as possible, isolating top performers and scaling them as quickly as possible. So that's kind of the next step of the process there.
Yeah. Well, maybe that'll be a future episode. Would love to hear feedback for you guys listening, just even breaking down where we're giving you top of funnel, no pun intended, on the strategy, on very top of mind, like high level overview of how we launch all this creative that we come from seeding campaigns, but also more importantly, if you guys are already getting a ton of creative or have a good amount of UGC coming in from customers that you're automatically just capturing, we would highly recommend running dynamic creative testing with cost caps. So this was a first little preview, maybe a part 1, and maybe we can jump into part 2. But we'd love to hear feedback, questions, anything that you can reach out to Taylor or I, or go to our website, kynship.co. Thanks for listening and tuning in every couple of weeks here. All right, everyone. All right, that's all for today. If you'd like some help developing your influencer marketing campaign, go ahead and DM us on Twitter. Links are in the description. Or you can head to kinship.co to learn more, and you can book a call there. That's kynship.co. At kinship.co, you also find tools, templates, and resources, all designed to help you grow an influencer campaign that drives visibility and sales, not just likes. Thanks for tuning in as always, and we'll see you next week.